My name's Corey Parker. Yeah, I'm an actor and an acting coach, and I live in Memphis now. Yeah. So, let's get started. I think the first question that I want to ask is just to go back sort of to the beginning. For each of you guys as actors, just in terms of when you started out, who was out there that inspired you? You know, who? I mean, it may still inspire you, but when you were first starting out, you know, who were those people or that person?
Marcel, do you guys know who we are? Do you guys know who we are?
Yeah.
Should we introduce? I think we should introduce.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah. Sure.
I'll go ahead and answer the question too. Chris Farley was my first hero, and I actually still think he's one of the best. But I'm Tim Morton. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I lived in Memphis for about 5 years. Did a lot of Marcus? Yeah. What's up, man? I got started doing films through the Media Co-op, which I know a lot of you all probably have heard of. The Memphis Digital Arts Cooperative that was in the basement of the First Congo Church, right at Cooper and Young. And that was with Morgan Fox and a handful of other people, and we put on workshops and did film screenings and things of that nature. And basically, we're just a crew of people making films out of pocket, DIY guerrilla style filmmaking, and there was a whole sort of collective mentality. That's how I got started. Made some very, very small films, and then about every year would make something that got more, more substantial, and then ended up acting in a film that went to South by Southwest and was in the competition there, and then most recently a film that premiered at Tribeca and won Best New Director. I was the star in that. That was a period piece, Civil War era period piece called Men Go to Battle. And that brings us up to date. So I came at acting kind of on a very more like a DIY level. I'm interested to learn what you're all. I think we might have all different approaches to the way that we entered into acting. So let's hear from their perspective.
Hi, I'm Juliet Reeves London. Jeremy's my husband, so I just changed my last name to London. It's kind of weird, but I started acting in Orlando. I'm from Tampa originally, so I kind of fell into it. Friends of mine were making a really bad zombie movie, and they were like, "Hey, you want to be in it?" And I had never really thought about working in film before or wanted to, and so I did it, and it was fun. And from there, I decided to actually try to be good at it, which is still a process, but took classes and went to LA and all that good stuff. But up to date, I have a movie coming out called Girl in the Woods, directed by Jeremy Benson, which is showing here Monday at 8:30, and hopefully you guys can check it out. It's going to be really cool. It's a thriller that's also a survival story and a little bit scary, very different. So it's kind of my story.
Hi, I'm Jeremy London. I've been around for about 25 years doing different TV shows and movies, and I was certainly one of those, it was a shot. I don't know how I wound up in the business. I grew up on a farm in Oklahoma for the most part, so I never really thought that I would wind up doing it professionally. And then we moved to Dallas, and when we lost our farm, actually, oddly enough, and I met a guy in Dallas who was sort of half legitimate, kind of a bit of a weasel, you know? Like, you knew that he was kind of scamming most people and was riding on his, he was an extra in like Tender Mercies or something like that, and so he was riding that pony until it wouldn't, ride him. Yeah, great movie, but he literally was like an extra. But what he did do, which is what I encourage my students, I'm an acting coach as well, is to network as much as possible. And what he did on Tender Mercies is he became friends with the casting director, who was Sherry Rhodes, who cast such wonderful movies as The Mississippi Burning and the very first movie my brother and I ever were a part of, Reese Witherspoon's very first movie, a movie called The Man in the Moon, which was a beautiful, beautiful movie. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. So whenever she was coming through Dallas casting The Man in the Moon, my twin brother and I we really never really took it seriously because we thought it was just too far-fetched. But I wanted to go on this audition, and my brother absolutely did not want to. He didn't care at all. But he was the only one that had a car at the time, so I literally forced him to go on the audition. And I guess because he didn't care, he wasn't nervous or anything, I went in, I was like, I'm an actor. I'm going to go in and act. And he was like, yeah, let's get this over with. But whatever it was just the right amount of cool for them to cast him in the movie, and it was just the strangest thing, I think I was more excited when he got cast in the movie than he was. He was like, well, what do I do now? I didn't want to do this in the first place. And so, oddly enough, that's sort of how we got in the business. I forced my twin brother to go in on an audition he didn't want to go in on, and he wound up getting the part. It was pretty wild.
I forgot to answer who my influence was when I started. Naomi Watts. I think she's really brave and does a lot of gritty roles. And when I started acting, I went back and watched Mulholland Drive. And even though the movie's really strange, I was super impressed by her range in that film and her character just switching gears and being so different. And so, yeah, who was your?
When I first started, Gary Oldman was my favorite actor when I was in high school because I loved the movie Sid and Nancy. But I was watching this other movie. It's been a while since I can't remember what it was, but he played this brash New York lawyer. It was a movie with Christian Slater. I forgot what it was. And I was watching the movie going, whoever this guy is, this lawyer, this guy's incredible. He's amazing. I was just blown away by his performance. And then halfway through one of his monologues, I realized, I was like, that's Sid. Oh my God, that's Sid from Sid. And I couldn't believe that it was the same guy. And in that moment, but that was a pivotal moment for me because that's whenever I realized what acting was. It was like literally, it's like morphing almost, becoming that. And he was able to do it so well that I think I've strived to try to figure that out ever since. I've yet to reach it. We'll get there.
I'm up. My name is Gerrit Graham. I'm a professional, or was for a long time, a professional actor. I guess I've been sort of forced into retirement now. I lived in LA for 22 years, lived and worked in LA, and another 10 plus in New York. I did it sort of backwards. People, generally speaking, do theater in New York and then head for the coast, and I did it the other way around. And I should say that I had always been acting one way or another since I was a very small boy. A production of Winnie the Pooh at the Detroit Art Institute. I played one of Rabbit's friends and relations. And my partner and I had our own little scenelet. We had a fight on stage before Rue frightened us off. But I couldn't have, I was fourth grade or something, fourth or fifth grade, so I was pretty young. And I always did it in high school. At the boarding school I went to, I was the head of the Dramatic Association. When I got to college at Columbia University in New York, they made me the head of that Dramatic Association as well, really at the end of my freshman year, which was sort of I thought it was sort of a dodgy move because I didn't know about heading up or running anything, but it turned out that was mostly ceremonial, fortunately. But while I was there at Columbia, in the spring of my sophomore year, which was 1968, some of us here will remember what the spring of 1968 was like in this country.
You can remember it. That must not have been too much fun.
Pretty despicable time.
Yeah,
I remember it.
yeah.
Max goes way back.
He goes way
Max
back.
remembers.
It's older than he looks.
He's really 76.
Were your parents born yet?
Probably not.
He has Benjamin Button disease. He's really 72.
Anyway, in brief, I lucked into a part in a Brian De Palma movie, his first sort of which you might call overground movie, a film called Greetings, which ended up winning the Silver Bear at the Berlin Film Festival. And then a year later, while I was at Second City in Chicago, I'd taken a leave of absence from Columbia because I figured this acting thing might be a little more enjoyable than being a French lit major. He called me and said, we're making a sequel. And, so I was in that, and then a few years after that, he called to say he was making a real Hollywood feature, a big movie, the Phantom of the Paradise, my name. And after he finished that, Brian De Palma, I'm still ranting about here, he called and said that he was going to show the film around in LA looking for a distributor, and that if I had ever thought about going to the West Coast, this would be the moment because everybody was going to see the film in a short amount of time. And he turned out to be right. I went out there and I started working immediately, television and some stage, which is like out there, you know, if you do a play out there, it's like landing from Mars.
Yeah, it's
They
weird.
just have no idea.
It's just no culture.
No.
No theater culture there.
But I worked, I became that particular thing, a working actor, which is to say not a star, but somebody who worked steadily, TV and films. I was the kind of person that if people saw me coming out down the street, they weren't sure whether they recognized me, they weren't sure whether it was because they'd seen me on TV or gone to high school with me.
Yeah, I understand.
He gets that all the time.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, he gets that all the time.
All the time. And there's two of me. I've got a twin brother, so I get twice.
Oh, yeah.
And then whenever they do recognize me,
Very confusing.
recognize me for the wrong movie. I've just started saying yes. It's yeah, that's me. Let's move on.
So that's it, really. Came back to New York and did a series in New York and a couple of pictures.
You are though. You're one of those workhorse actors though, because I remember seeing
Yeah,
you
lots of stuff.
for years. You know,
Yeah.
you're one of those faces that pops into many different places.
Yes.
I think it's better to be that type of workhorse actor. You know, it seems to have a little bit more longevity and range. You know, you don't have so much of the weight of the world on your shoulders. You know, like for the longest time, I was only the boyfriend, the cool dude riding the motorcycle, you know?
Yeah.
It was like, that was it, you know?
I rode a number of motorcycles myself, man. For a while, I'm sure you folks remember, well, you may not know them by name, but there was a production house called Spelling Goldberg that made one cop show after another. I think their most popular was probably Starsky and Hutch. But there was a period there when cop shows were it. They were the rage, and there was one cheeseball series after another. And it got to the point at which I didn't have to audition for them anymore. They'd just call my agent, say, is Gerrit available this week to play some sort of thug or hoodlum or axe murderer or what have you. So I played a lot of villains for a stretch, but it's better than...
That sounds fun.
It was fun.
It is fun. It is fun. It's like,
Always wanted to play the villain or something like that.
Well, if you go out to LA, your chance will come.
he's
He's
out
out
there,
there,
man.
he's working,
He's a
he's working.
hard-working actor, this young man's a very, very good actor.
Thank you very
I
much.
want to hear your story.
Yeah.
All right. The first thing I ever did, I was in Daddy Daycare. Does anybody
What's your
remember that?
name?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Max Burkholder. First thing I ever did, I was 4 years old. I was in a movie called Daddy Daycare with Eddie Murphy, and I had no idea what was going on the entire time I was on the set. Seriously, I didn't even know that we were being recorded or filmed, or
Right.
that it was going to be
It's all make-believe, right?
up on a screen. Yeah, exactly that.
Just in a very elaborate treehouse or something,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, I honestly just thought I was going to play around with a bunch of other kids for like 4 hours a day for like 2 months.
That's not that
It's not
different
that
from
far in
being
line.
Yeah, it's basically what it is. And But that was just that was all it was. I had no idea that there was any sort of bigger purpose, and then I still didn't really understand acting for what even just the most basic form until a few years later. I was like 9, right? Ooh, old, mature. Yeah. I was basically a man already. And, I saw Lawrence of Arabia for the first time, and I think I was probably still too young for sure to really appreciate any of it. But what really stuck out to, I mean, just, you asked about our heroes and our inspirations, and I think just Peter O'Toole in that movie is just, I've never been able to forget like how I felt watching him in those scenes, just like sitting down on the floor, kind of waiting for the intermission a little bit. But yeah, that's where I think I first felt, wow, this is something that I could actually maybe want to do as I get older, and something that I might want to pursue in the future.
I'm sure it didn't hurt that he was so incredibly cool looking.
He looks so cool.
So cool. Great looking.
Yeah.
I guess he was probably about 9 years old too.
Yeah, about there.
Well, it's
Maybe
it's
10.
interesting that that's the type of movie that that inspired you, rather because most 9-year-olds are still watching the kiddish
Very-
show.
very sophisticated.
Disney. So that does show
You're so sophisticated.
why you're. I think it's why you're persevering as young and as well as you are, because I think that you had seems to me like you had just an innate understanding of like what the difference was between something that's epic and something that's fluff. You know, it's like you had your intuition was pretty advanced.
Good perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, another thing that I'd like to know about, I left LA also after 17 years, and when I came here to Memphis, and I found that there's something that can happen with young people here who want to act, which is to see an actor on TV or in film, and in doing that, watch a professional who's making it look easy, but not understand that. So they're just seeing someone up there doing it and saying, I can do that, which is a very pure, wonderful impulse.
Yeah.
But what allows the actor to get to that point where they can actually do the work, make it look easy? I mean, do you feel like a teacher is important? What's the process for a young actor to understand to get to going from amateur to professional?
Well, in my case, I didn't think of it in terms of studying acting or something. It was just something that was better than French lit. That's and I was extremely fortunate, very fortunate, the ultimate of lucky breaks that De Palma put me in those 2 movies so early on. And I got the same sort of break at Second City in Chicago. You folks know what Second City is?
Yeah.
Comedy Review. So I got the same kind of break there. So I suppose early on it seemed sort of, this is a doddle. I'm just going to keep working because people are going to keep giving me swell jobs. And then, of course, your perspective sharpens a bit. But what I was going to say is that my training, such as it is, was all improvisational. There's a guy named, he's dead now, I'm sorry to say, a guy named Paul Sills, who was the founding director at Second City, and he and his mother, Viola Spolin, essentially invented improvisation for the theater. In fact, she wrote a book called Improvisation for the Theater, which is based on games, really. And that book is the Bible of improvisation. But the thing is, improvisation is not geared to, it doesn't suit egomaniacs. One of the key elements of improvisation, one of the things that makes it work, is for you to keep your concentration on the other person. Right?
Reacting.
And if that other person is doing that too, then what happens between you, in the space between you, is what's interesting. There's nothing I can say or do.
You have to play off the other person.
reacting.
It's not something you can do alone.
Exactly right.
Yeah, and there's nothing either of us can do alone that is as interesting as what's happening in the space between us.
Yeah, so you can't really plan. You have to react to what's going on with the other actor. And so that's my thing. I don't know how a scene's gonna go. And sometimes I'll do a scene and later on I'll watch the movie back and go, I don't even remember doing that.
Well, I'll just finish by saying that concentrating on the other person you don't start thinking right away in terms of stardom. You know, it's sort of a palliative for the ego.
Well, I have a very distinctive, actually. I think it's, I think for most people, it's usually kind of it's an easing into it as you do it repetitive. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get. The more the nerves go away. The more good actors you work with that you can feed off and you learn. All of that sort of starts to become part of who you are and who you grow in over a length of time, a process. So it's nothing that you can pinpoint finitely, but I actually can, because for me, figuring out that what I was doing was truly, if I was going to do it, I had to really, really take it seriously and realized that it was a career. It wasn't just goofing off. It was when my first television series was a show called I'll Fly Away in the early 90s. We won the Emmy for Best Drama and then got canceled a couple weeks later. So that was my introduction to the business. So we won. Yeah. The first season whenever I first was cast as Sam Waterston's son, and Sam Waterston is brilliant, obviously. So I had, I was nervous as hell, to say the least, working with such a wonderful actor. And I'd already worked with him on The Man in the Moon, but it was different. It was different, and I really wanted to live up to his expectations, but I was still so young and so green, and I was a bag of nerves. And I remember John Falsey, who was one of the producers who created the show, but he also created like St. Elsewhere and Northern Exposure and all stuff. So it was Josh Brand and John Falsey. They created the show. And John Falsey, who never came to the set in Georgia, showed up to the set one day. And I was like, well, that's really weird that he's here. And it wasn't particularly like that nice to me. And I was like, something's weird. And he was like, Jeremy, I need to talk to you after work today. I was like, oh. I obviously was not, it didn't feel like it was going to be anything good. And the bottom line was that he told me, he was like, we know that you can do this. We've seen it. You just need to stop worrying about everybody else around you. Because at the time, he could just tell that I could feel every eyeball in the room on me. I thought that everybody was judging me and everybody was staring at me, and that I had
but that's why you get into it, is you have everybody's eyeballs.
Not really. No, I never really liked that. I never really liked that part of it. But it obviously unnerved me. But having said that, John Falsey basically said, if you don't come out of your shell, we're going to have to replace you. And so that moment changed everything for me. From that point on, I just made it my goal to just completely forget about everything else and realize that the only people that I'm performing for are the people that are on the other end of that camera, sitting at home, watching their televisions or in the theater. That the people around there, they just want you, they've got their own jobs to do. They're focusing on their own things. They're not thinking about what you're doing, unless you're just screwing the whole thing up or being an ass. Once I realized that, I was able to actually get out of my head and start actually performing. And in that moment, that's when I became an actor. And absolutely no lie, about 3 weeks later, Josh Brand showed back up. John Falsey showed back up to the set, and I was just like, oh no. But he looked at me and he went, kid, come here. He took me over and he said, not only did I do exactly what he asked me to do, but he said his words, I promise, he said, you're now my favorite character on the show, and I'm only going to write for you.
Wow.
And then the difference of like three or 4 weeks. But it was that finite of a moment that I can pinpoint when it really changed for me. Yeah. And it came down to, do I want to do this or do I want to get fired? And so I cowboyed up.
On the sort of other end of the spectrum of that, like I was saying, I do a lot of DIY filmmaking, and you are asking the question what it takes to become an actor. At what point does something become acting? Well, I've worked with a lot of filmmakers and actors who are quote-unquote non-actors. And that's sort of how I started too. I was a non-actor. And then you're in a film, and you don't immediately think of yourself as an actor because you were in a film. I'm just like, I'm a guy who is in a film. I'm not an actor though. And then that continued to happen, and at a certain point, I had to call myself an actor. So now I'm being asked to answer questions about acting, and I feel like that's probably pretty clear that I'm an actor. That's like clear indication. But at the same time, I don't.
This is a pivotal moment for him.
Yeah. Like,
This is nice.
I must be an actor then. But then the whole step into professionalism is an entirely different thing, and I think that a part of me wants to be a professional actor, which would be, I got paid for acting, and so I guess that means that I'm a professional actor, but I'm not. I haven't made a full-time run of it. I don't live in LA. Well, I live in the Louisville area, but I don't.
Well, if you were in LA, you would have considered yourself an actor a long time ago.
Yeah, but it's just
trash man.
It's just an interesting, different perspective. I've worked with a lot of DIY people who are non-actors or non-whatever, and then they do it, and then it doesn't necessarily make you who you are. But I will say this about a lot of people who attempt to act can't even drink a glass of water without this, you can see it on the camera that this person's aware that they're drinking. It's like this calculated drink of water.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that's pretty see-through. So I think there's a certain level at which some people are capable of shutting off that self-calculating sort of thing and go on to a more natural, using the
organic.
Yeah, being more organic. So I think that speaks to how.
Yeah. I think that goes back to what you guys were saying about how it's not something that egomaniacs can start easily, because at least for me, the people that I respect the most are the people whose performances that I respond to the most are the people who take themselves the least seriously outside of the scene. The people who don't think that they're God's gift to creation, that they're oh wow, I'm a professional actor, I'm a movie star, I'm really good, look at me. A lot of times a performance will be just that, they'll be performing, and I think that if that's where your mind is, it can be very difficult to get started, at least. I'm sure we've all encountered people who are very good at acting who do have very large egos. I think that's not a rarity, but I think that when you're starting, at least, you can't really be very good if you're putting yourself into the scene.
Yeah. We gotta remember, most of the people that are boasting like that usually it's coming from a place of actually lack of confidence.
Insecurity.
It's insecurity as opposed to security.
Well, there's a distinction must be made between being an actor and being a movie star.
Yeah.
When you get to LA, in particular, you're presented with a choice. You can pursue an acting career, or what I guess you would consider your art career, the actual art of acting, and wanting to improve yourself as an actor and get the best gigs you can and so on. Or you can follow the movie star track, which is different. The movie star track is wanting to put yourself forward and going to the right parties and sucking up to the right people, and making sure that you, that you just insert yourself into the situation in exactly the way you're talking about.
The goal is to become big, not to become good.
Yeah, quite right. Well said. Well said.
I think that often they can end up in the same place, though, because if you look at, there's movie stars that I think that haven't gone down that route of trying to make themselves bigger.
A classic example is Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
He never turns up in the tabloids, And he's an actual person,
He's crashing
human
planes,
being.
but that's 6 episodes he's crashing planes. That's
Yeah.
But he lives, so that just makes him even cooler.
Yeah.
Of course, Harrison Ford's gonna live when he crashes an airplane.
For myself, I have no interest in being famous. I love acting, and I love getting outside of myself for a little bit. To me, it's a high, and it's a wonderful experience, but I don't do it at all for the attention.
No
whatsoever.
interest in being famous?
I'll get famous.
I don't want to.
That's what I'm
It makes me uncomfortable. We did a celebrity wife swap this year, And that was my only brush with fame, and people were on Twitter asking me questions about the show, and actually made me really uncomfortable.
I've had a little touch of both. I've had a little
really
touch
like
of the being famous whenever it was on the like Party of Five, whenever it was hot and that kind of stuff. And now Mallrats is becoming like a bigger thing, and we're getting ready to do the sequel. And for me, just who I am, I still consider myself sort of just a farm boy from Oklahoma, and I really have never been comfortable with being put on pedestals ever. And I think I kind of sort of lost myself a little bit whenever that did start happening to me, because I stopped being able to enjoy going to do things just like going to the mall and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to do
And
that.
generally, nobody would even bother me, but I would have convinced myself before I even got there that I was going to get mauled by people and that all these people were, and so there's a deep-seated thing probably wanting that to happen, and the other part of it that would be disappointed if it doesn't happen, and then the other part of me disappointed or like freaked out when it does happen, because when it does happen it's freaking weird.
It's weird, yeah.
But you know, the actors that say that they don't like being recognized and all that stuff are full of shit. They're full of it. Pardon my language, but they're just full of it.
Right. You don't get into the business to hide your light under a bushel.
The only thing that's worse, the only thing worse than getting recognized everywhere you go is whenever it stops. Really.
This hasn't happened to him yet. People, like, they think it's like, who said,
Yeah,
maybe
he
you went to
goes-
high school with him or something? He gets that. I know you from somewhere. Did you go to high school with me? He said,
Sometimes people come up to me and say, "Oh my God, it's been such a long time. How are you?"
Yeah.
And I'll be like, "I'm so great." Who are you?
You
Yeah.
guys want to talk all about the role that you're playing in the picture that you've got here?
Sure.
I'm sorry, what?
The role that you're playing, the role in your movie.
That's playing.
And a second part to that is, do you guys...
In what movie?
Whatever's
Movie in
part.
this-
the one that we had.
Why I'm Here?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the second part of it has to do with, do you see any difference in shooting 35 millimeter film and how you've gotten to everything's become about shooting video?
Great question.
Easy question on the digital. Everything's digital, so I've only ever filmed anything digital, and I don't think there's much wrong with that. I mean, even people who claim to have be able to know the difference, now the technology is such that the best digital cameras compare almost exactly to film, and I think it's more of just a romanticization of what film is that people want to use it. I don't think there's a quality difference. Anyway, as far as the film that you all missed your chance to see the film that I was in, which was last night for this film festival, but it did get a
What was the name?
Men Go to Battle. It was the Civil War era period piece that it's a feature-length film. And it went to, we premiered it at Tribeca Film Festival and won Best New Director there, which is an achievement, I would say. I'm not the director. I'm not the director of it, but that was shot on the Alexa in Kentucky. But we got a little distribution deal off that, so I think in the future, keep your eyes out for it. I think it'll either hit some sort of digital distribution, or it'll probably play in LA. It's actually playing in LA tomorrow at the AFI Film Festival. Yeah, Adam?
Yeah, Tim, can you talk about working at, I know Mike Ryan went to see it, and talk about working on that kind of film and that kind of budget, and just what the differences is, and coming from the DIY world.
Yeah. Well, I really love that sort of world because everybody is like scrounging all of their resources to get as much juice out of every single aspect of the movie as they can. And that also means that people are working longer. I mean, I think all films can become stressful environments or long environment, take a long time to make, time consuming. But I mean, that film, for instance, we were shooting all night, over and over, like day in and day out, and in really, really cold environments, and it was uncomfortable, but we were all sort of in it to win it, and there was a team effort feeling, and in that film, it's really one of the most ambitious films with that sort of a budget. They say in filmmaking to never use to not that like there's like elements that you don't, if you're an independent film maker, to not have like, try to not have animals in it, not have kids, or not use all these elements that are a little bit hard to control. Well, we had kids, we had mules, we had chickens, we had
Bad weather.
we had night shots, we had water scenes, we had battle scenes, we had all this different stuff. And I don't know how he did it with the budget, but it
What
was.
was the budget, if you don't mind, because we don't know?
He doesn't want us to. I don't even know. I don't know.
Like a ballpark.
It was less than $1 million.
Okay.
But the film was like. So anyway, yeah. I think it was very ambitious. It was probably the most ambitious film for that sort of budget. And I can't. But then coming at it from your all's perspective, where you kind of show up, you get a script, and you show up, and you don't have to build a brick wall or anything like that. You know.
You built a brick wall.
Not a brick wall. I built a on set. You know, we were having to rehab this 200-year-old cabin, and I built the well on. Like, I wasn't the art director, but the well
So
needed
did
to be
it.
built.
So
So
you did it.
yeah, so I did.
I worked on a lot of stuff that has been pretty low budget, so I get in a lot of different. I should have a lot of producer credits right now, really. 'Cause I jumped in a lot. But the movie I have showing here is called Girl in Woods, and I guess I'm technically the lead in it.
She's the lead.
But
The movie's about her.
I get lost in the woods and spend about a month there, and I sort of unravel and split off into different personalities. So essentially, I play 3 characters in the movie. And so that was a lot of mental work, and we would shoot, one scene where the characters are talking to each other. It's hard to explain. It's going to sound really weird. When you see it, it'll make sense. But
Just split personalities.
Yeah, split
Yeah,
personalities. So
psychosis,
I would have one that was
Gollum from Lord of the Rings.
so much like. Actually, that was one of my inspirations for my
Yeah.
main crazy character. Like I would think like Gollum. Like I would just like be Gollum. That's how crazy she is. Like so when I see it, it doesn't even seem like me. I mean, one of the 3 personalities is similar to me, but none of them are just like me. And so I had some inspirations. There's a nice one that's more comforting, like we're gonna get out of this, it's gonna be okay. And then I have the crazy one that's like, you're so stupid, we're never gonna make it. I don't want to freak you guys out, but a lot of people think that acting is glamorous, but I think that was the set. I would tell you, I've been very scarred from, physically and probably a little emotionally. It was really draining. My legs have scars on them from spider bites. Our cinematographer, Ryan Parker, sitting right here, he was with me the whole time. He worked so hard with the heavy camera, standing on the side of the mountain in the Smoky Mountains.
Snakes.
Almost got bit by a rattlesnake. I did all my own stunts, so I had to do a lot of swimming, climbing, etc. Busted my forehead open first day of the shoot, and it was just bleeding down my face, and I'm still going through the scene. So it was the hardest I've ever worked in my life, physically and otherwise. And but I hope the movie.
It pays off.
I hope it pays off. I hope that you guys see the movie and like it. I'm proud of it.
It does. I'm proud of her. When Juliet and I first met, she showed me the footage from Girl in Woods
It
at
wasn't
the
done,
time,
but what we had,
and it
yeah.
wasn't completely finished. But her performance was certainly it was stellar, and you could tell that she had been pretty much tortured. There were a lot of elements in it that didn't work, and to the filmmakers, I was impressed. They actually went back and we reshot the things that weren't working, and I came in and I played her boyfriend, and we got Charisma Carpenter on board, and just elevated the whole project. But it wouldn't have happened if it wouldn't have been for her original sacrifice that she made in this movie. It really was a lot. When you see it, it's just, you think it's going to be a stunt person doing all this stuff, but it's really her doing all of it. So I was so impressed by all of that I just figured, I was like, I have to call these guys and tell them that they've got a chance to fix their movie here. I didn't think they'd listen to me, but they actually did, to their credit, and went and made a hell of a movie. But I play her boyfriend in it. Some cool stuff happens. But I want to address the question of what you're talking about the 35 millimeter and the digital. For me, it's a very somewhat aggravating scenario that's going on, because now that digital technology is so available and relatively inexpensive, everybody and their dog thinks they can make movies. Yeah. And so everybody thinks that they're filmmakers now, and everybody thinks that they're movie makers, and everybody thinks that they're actors, because they think it's, and more than anything, the most frustrating thing about it is that they think it's easy, because they can film something and then go edit it in their mom's basement on a laptop. They think that it's that what we do is easy and that there isn't that much sacrifice and that we do just kind of have this like cushy lifestyle and that it's glamorous and all this stuff, and it's just not. What has happened I miss film. I love film because when we were shooting on film, not only did it look infinitely better, but it took like months to shoot projects. And so when you get a job, you would have a job for months, not 13 days. You know, we're shooting movies now in 13 to 18 days that we used to shoot in 3 or 4 months.
That's right.
And it, to me, is disrespectful to the process. It's just, we're not allowed to put the time into developing these roles and and more than anything, the relationships with actors to actors. The time that we used to be able to spend on set was invaluable to the way that it would come across on screen because it would become a more intimate
Just hanging out
scenario.
between
Exactly,
shots, just
right.
hanging around.
You get to know each other. Now you're in and
for
out.
camera setups. and stuff.
Exactly. You're in and out so fast you don't even get to know your peers.
Yeah, well, I was fortunate, I guess, that when I started, there wasn't any digital tech. You couldn't make a movie with
Me either.
tiny little Sony and, one guy holding a lamp. Greetings, that early Palma film was shot on 35 millimeter color. And I recall De Palma saying that they used short ends, which well, it doesn't really come into play anymore.
No, it's what's left over at the end of the
Used to be at the end of a long reel,
Yeah.
that there were a couple of 100 feet left over that hadn't been exposed, and they were just sort of snipped off at the developing house. And you could get them for cheap. Which is what Brian did, and the stuff was developed at the end of the day for cheap at some editing house, Panavision or whatever, and was just sort of thrown in the soup at the last minute. So it had Greetings looks like a 16 millimeter that's been blown up to an ungodly size, but it's actually 35 millimeter. But yes, you do have to light it. It takes time to get the setups right. You can't do it with one guy holding a lamp. It's a more elaborate process, and in that sense, arguably more creative and certainly more collaborative, because it's you, the director, at least, is working with the lighting guy, the camera operator, the guy who's, the grips that are building the sets and so on. And these days with a little video camera, you can shoot what's called practical locations, meaning you can go to somebody's house and shoot there because you don't have to set up.
Which those are the positives. Those are the benefits, for sure.
Yes, it is. It just makes it different, that's all.
Yeah.
And personally, and this I think is can be perhaps best illustrated by the difference in the first 3 Star Wars films and the second group. First 3 Star Wars films, oddly parts 4, 5, and 6, were shot on film, all on film. And the next 3, the newer 3, were shot on digital video. And to me, the difference is immediately apparent. The video stuff looks cold, it looks two-dimensional. Those scenes, thousands of drones lined up,
There's
stretching
also
out.
not very good CGI.
Yeah, it looks like, I was gonna say, it looks like CGI. It looks like computer,
Yeah.
like almost like a cartoon.
It's the way people a century before me, even if you can imagine such felt about the difference between stage and film, that something was being lost. And I think the difference between film and digital is something that's being lost there, a warmth, a human involvement, even as foolish as that sounds, the fact that it takes such a large group of people working in concert gives it a human quality that is not obtainable on digital.
That's what I'm saying. It's almost become like movie factories now, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like the people doing it really for the art. I like Ryan, Earl Parker, these guys, Gerrit, these guys can make digital look like film, which is great. in those instances, it really does help save time. And if you got a good project but you just can't get the money together to do it on a big scale, it's a great option to have.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
I was
There's
just
no
about to
doubt
say,
about
like,
it.
I've grown up, like,
You've only known that.
I've really only known
Yeah.
digital. I don't think I've shot very many. I honestly, Morgan, he's the director of the movie that's here. Did we shoot on film or digital? I have no idea.
Definitely on film.
Not film. Okay. So yeah, I mean, like,
You would have known.
I would have known. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a pretty short shoot. So
Yeah.
from what you did,
Yeah, I mean,
I don't really know very much of a difference. But from what you guys have been saying, like. Just from my perspective, I think that it's good that film has been made more accessible to people, because, I mean, what if, you had a really good idea 30 years ago, but you just didn't have the money.
Yeah, you had to
it's,
raise serious dough to be able to do it.
People are able to perceive for themselves whether they think a movie is good or not, and they're going to respond to a good movie, whether it's shot on digital
True
or
enough.
whether it's shot on film.
True enough.
In my
True
opinion.
enough.
So I'd love to go ahead and open it up if anyone has questions for these guys. Any questions, anything you want to ask? Yeah.
What advice would you give directors in order for them to better work with you? I mean, there's no film without actors. That's the greatest gift that you can give a director.
I say, mine's just going to be short, but I just say understand acting, at least a little bit. I've worked with a lot of directors that have no idea about the process whatsoever, and snap your fingers and you're like, you have this emotional scene, they're like, go.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more to it.
Yeah. Understand the emotional value of what it is that you're trying to get out of your actor, and then figure out a way to communicate with them what it is you need from them without being too overwhelming or whatever. But you have to communicate with them. Never just assume that they know where their marks are going to be and where the beats and how it's going to go. We're there as actors to serve you as the director, to give you what you need. But in order to do that, you have to thoroughly communicate to us what it is you need from us. What's the point of the scene? What's the range? What's your emotional state when you come into the scene, and what should it be when you leave the scene?
Even what size the shot is.
Exactly right.
You got my whole body, or it just, this
Yeah.
much. It's, I'm sorry to say, that the majority of directors don't direct. They don't know how to direct. They just sort of sit there and watch. And they leave it to the actors to come up to them and say, well, I think the guy should be a raving lunatic, or I think the guy should be a sissy, or whatever. This goes back to what I was saying about it being a collaborative process. If you're just sitting there looking at a monitor, this is the other thing about digital. Before digital, if you were the director, you had to look at what was happening. You had to look at the actors to get some idea of what the shot was and whether it was good or bad. Now, the directors, 15 yards behind the scenes, they're looking at a little bitty digital monitor. And that tends to reduce his judgment to whether or not the camera shot looks good. Is everybody in focus? Is the movement right? Does it look the way he wanted it to look? And it's difficult to concentrate on the performance when everybody's tiny on this little screen. I think, anyway. That's my opinion.
I would just add one quick thing to that question is that, and just coming again from the perspective of being a non-actor, and I think that for
Come on, you're an actor, man.
I use the quotes. I use the quote signs. Non-actor, but if you're making your own film and you're hiring people who maybe aren't professional actors, I think it's really important to make sure that they are comfortable doing what they're doing. And what I mean by that is that sometimes there's this assumption that people, like I've directed a film, a little short film, and I asked a girl to play a part in it, and she was not an actor, and she was like, sure, that sounds like fun. But I kind of just assumed that she was going to show up and be very comfortable sort of improvising around a certain part, but she obviously wasn't. and it was my assumption that sort of made the ass out of
Yes.
me.
I think
me and
that's
her.
a risk to take. I think that's the risk to take when you start hiring non-actors. I mean, I think if you're going to make a movie,
Don't forget the quotes.
The element
Yeah,
to
not actors quotes.
an essential element to making a real movie is to have real actors. If you don't, you're going to have a real mess to deal with. I think this gentleman back there had one, and then we'll go to this one.
Me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask Max a question. So where do you see, coming out of a successful, when you were young doing films and then TV, and now you've been in this film Babysitter, which is an independent film.
Screening tomorrow at 11.
Yeah. With the director here, Morgan, yeah. And so where do you see yourself in your journey? You're now out, you're 18 now?
Yeah, I'm 18, so where do I see myself
Yeah.
in my journey? Well, I know that
Where do you wanna go?
I know that I definitely want to continue acting in the future, but I'm not sure when in the future that'll be. I'm looking at good, interesting roles right now. And if and when I go to college, I'm not sure if I'm going to stop acting or continue acting, but I know that it's what I'm going to end up doing.
Right.
However I get there.
At a certain point, this is what happened to me. I did, as most actors do, took a lot of jobs to pay rent and stay alive. I waited on many a table and I drove many a mile in a taxi cab. I thought, or at least my parents thought, that I was going to work at a brokerage house or the family law firm or what have you. But comes the point at which, when somebody asks you what you do, the only thing that sounds right, that makes any sense at all, that sounds like you, that doesn't sound like bullpucky, is I'm an actor. It's how you describe yourself, even before you're being paid for it, even after you're long since retired. In that present tense, I'm an actor. It's like saying, I don't know, I'm an American, I'm a man,
It's who you are.
Human being. It's who you are. It's who you are. And no matter how inept you are when you begin, if you have that sense of yourself, that self-definition, inevitably you end up with the fire in the belly. I mean, you're not going to be able to lay off, man.
Never.
No. That's
I
it.
think this gentleman had one.
In the world of acting, what are some of the differences between, let's say, your generation of actors as opposed to the most recent generations before you?
I think
Junior.
technology for one. I think as far as like I'm 43 today, so I actually
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I started whenever it was still just film, and have seen the evolution. Like I said, he doesn't know anything different. Like he only knows the digital world, so he doesn't have anything to reference. I think now they're coming into that quick jump into it, hit your spot, get your lines right, and get out of there, kind of like fast.
But are you talking about the artistic difference?
Just living the lives as actors, what's expected now as opposed to in past years. Now, I don't want to say back in the 50s and the 60s, but there's a difference in acting and the like. I've heard some of the differences as it relates to the digital world versus the film world. Do you find major differences when you look at
I would just say one thing is that there still is, but I think historically acting as a career choice was done with such reverence, and there was a lot of it was a craft.
Gotcha.
And now it's an art, but I think that the spectrum of who might be deemed an actor has greatly expanded.
Diluted.
And now that there's even YouTube, where people can put themselves, or Vine, make a 6-second video they're all actors too, I think.
They're considered
So-
hashtag actor.
That's a very good point.
I did a Vine video. Hashtag actor. Hashtag model.
Well, the thing is, I think the important distinction there is that those people consider themselves separate actually from actors. I mean, they don't go around saying, yeah, I'm an actor. No, they say, I'm a YouTuber,
Yeah.
which I find very interesting.
I know that's actually people say that.
Yeah, no, there's
YouTube star.
one of the most famous person in the world, just worldwide generally, is a YouTuber who goes by the name PewDiePie. Yeah, no, he's the most famous person in the world. And he plays video games
More famous
on
than me?
YouTube and comments on them as he's playing them.
As he plays video games.
As he plays
Son
video
is
son
obsessed with
my
that.
8-year-old son watches other people play video games.
Yeah,
on YouTube.
that's the main difference between me and
What in the world?
the youngsters. Yeah.
Is that entertaining to you?
No, not at all. Yeah. No, that's very much people. I mean, it's weird to consider myself a separate generation, but it's almost like it is because
You're a Lawrence of Arabia, buddy. You are a separate.
You have some class. You're not a
it's
gamer.
but like people like 5 or 6 years younger than me have these forms of entertainment that I just can't get into at all.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
weird.
that's society changes. My parents, or particularly my grandparents' generation, saw movies as a curiosity. And by the 40s, it was well on its way to becoming a crucial part of a lot of people's lives. And some of it has to do with the intentions of the filmmakers. The great Hollywood studios, and the great pictures of the 30s and 40s, came from studios that were run, I'm thinking of Louis B. Mayer and DeMille and people like that, the Warner Brothers and so on, run by people who wanted to bask in the reflected light from some glorious fantasy starring Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. The glamour of it was a crucial part, and it was I think somewhat intentionally a world apart. Movie stars, glamour stars were it was sort of an unattainable level for most people. And now, because of YouTube and so on, anybody theoretically could do it. Anybody could be a movie star, and it's lost the luster that not just for the audience, but for the people who do it for a living. It hasn't got the kind of well, I hesitate to say uniqueness, but maybe that's it. It was a kind of artistic. It was a kind of art, and it no longer has that particular imprimatur. It just is.
That's not
I think
automatically
meaningless fame
associated with it.
has usurped us. I think the Kardashians and the people that are getting famous for
being famous,
or not for being famous. There's not a real distinction between like what is famous anymore.
I feel like
what is famous anymore?
that's not so much a symptom of the art of it dying out. I think it's just sort of a symptom of the new medias that have been introduced.
Yeah.
I feel like their presence doesn't mean that what we do is any less important to people. I feel like it's just a symptom of where the world is going, and I think that it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think the way that it's being pursued right now is definitely bad.
It depends on who the young children are trying to emulate.
It's true.
Well, there's a difference now. There's a difference between being an artist and being a celebrity.
Right.
It's true.
Celebrity is the poison coursing through the veins of American society.
Do you have
You could say everybody wants to be famous, and you can be famous for being famous, like the Kardashians.
She has a question.
Everybody, I'm sure, remembers Andy Warhol's prescient remark that in the future everybody's going to be famous for 15 minutes. He had no idea how right he was.
Right?
It kind of goes along with it. How much harder is it for you guys who built your careers on really having a talent versus somebody who just books a role because my friend is the director, or because I'm Insta famous, or because I have a million followers. Because it seems that's what happens is they hire their friend, or that some of these, some of the studios, because I work here in Los Angeles, and the studios want somebody who they don't have to put a lot of money behind. They want you to make money, but they want you to kind of already have that built-in marketability.
Well,
Say, oh, okay, I have a million followers, so, you know, we're going to make our movie.
Yeah,
all our money back.
You're right that there's a lot of networking involved, and I think that that's what sort of a lot of it comes down to is sort of you get into things because of who you know. There's a whole different process to getting into acting in like a professional sense than acting in films that are with friends and things of that nature. But what was the very beginning, the first question?
How much harder is it, or how different is it for you now to book roles based solely on your talent versus just because your friend is the director, or
it's harder.
I just want to,
and also versus somebody who's you know who's.
I was just going to say one thing to that is that talent doesn't necessarily. I mean. Getting successful doesn't necessarily mean that you're talented.
It's really never been that way.
And so, but I'm not really trying to say that I'm super talented. It's just that's the way things work. There's no really key to it. It's just sort of things unravel.
Yeah, it's the way of the world. Like I've been told many times by different people that I need to brand myself on Twitter and on Instagram.
Need to what?
Brand myself.
Oh, good golly.
To make myself into a brand, into a thing for consumption almost.
Yeah.
And I don't like the idea of that very much, because that, I think, sort of perverts the notion of what it is to be a person and to be an actor. If you're turning yourself into a product, I feel like it makes. I feel like we're all worse off for that. That is something that's prized right now. There was this web series, funnily enough, it was called The Supreme Tweeter, and it was about it was about just ridiculous. It just presented like a bunch of ridiculous concepts, like you know. Seth Rogen getting a role over, you know, some guy who was Seth Rogen getting a role in a film adaptation of some Shakespeare movie over a guy who was in the Royal Shakespeare Company. Right. And I just thought, wow, it's sad that that's actually something that is believable that could happen. And you know, I just think that it is very different now getting roles than it was.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. For me, it's a world of difference being a woman in the industry. I can't even tell you the amount of times that I've had an audition and heard it was amazing. Director loved you, everybody loved you. We've got this girl that was a Playboy model, so we're going to use her instead. Yeah. I'm going to tell you, that's what I deal with on a daily basis. So I deal a lot with, we just had a baby, so you know, I'm not super skinny, I'm not 90 pounds right now. Thankfully that started turning around, but that for a while, 10 years ago when I first started acting, that was the thing. I would book something, and they've made jokes about it in movies, but I swear to you it's true. This is what they would always say: don't gain any weight. Do you know what that means? Lose 20. Yeah. So for me, being a woman in the industry is a whole different different
also,
thing.
she had to deal with something also on Girl in Woods, and is that she truly is the lead in this movie. This movie is her movie. She literally bled for this movie, and yet Charisma Carpenter gets
because she's famous
top
and I'm not.
over her.
So the poster will say like starring Charisma Carpenter, and she came in and worked 3 days on it, and I worked 3 months on it, and so but. It's fine. I've learned that's industry. I also just had an audition for a huge TV series, and they narrowed it down to 3 people, and they loved me. And then they told me at the end, they love you, but you just don't have a name, so we're gonna go with somebody else. We have to use somebody who has a name, and I have to understand that too, because for me, it's constantly fighting with somebody who's more attractive or somebody more famous. And being a woman is really, really tough because you're not only. I mean, it's not about my skill at all. They would rather have somebody who looks better. Truthfully.
Well, men can be leading men until they're, look at Sean Connery, until he's like 78 years old.
Yeah, and then his wife will be 20 in the movie, that's how it works. But
brutal.
For women, it's like, I'm 37, I might as well be 65, They're going to use somebody who's 21,
Well, thank you guys. And we're just out of time.
Oh, yeah. One more.
How about agents? How about getting work?
That's going to take too long.
Yeah, that's going to take a long time. My agent doesn't really get me a lot though. I network. That's how I get jobs.
You gotta go get your own jobs a lot these
Yeah.
days and create your own work.
Yep.
That's why
I
I write and direct. And
We have a hand for these guys.
Thank everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
On the subject of agents, I'll leave you with this. Fred Allen said, you can take all the sincerity in Hollywood and put it in a flea's navel and still have room for 3 caraway seeds and an agent's heart.